We be live.
Hello.
Hey.
What?
Love the way you say. I love the way you start the stream. So it just gives me so much energy.
Oh,
Okay. So today we're answering. I'm hearing myself. I don't know if that's music guys
it
sing
it
audio is
can only
good.
be you. It's impossible
Okay,
for
it's
it
only
to
me.
be me.
Okay. Today we're answering questions. Before we answer questions, we have to answer the patron questions. So for people who don't know, if you're a patron on Patreon, that means that you get to send your questions to us ahead of time, and we answer them first. And then we get to the live chat questions. So make sure you keep asking your questions in the live chat. So then, like, if you see them, like, you could make me start them. I'm gonna start some as well, so that we can answer them at the end. But yeah, so if you want your questions to be answered first, or or if you want to make sure that you can ask questions even if you're not here live with us, then consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Link in the description. That way, that if the time is not convenient for you to come ask your questions, you could send the questions ahead of time, right? So, do you want to grab the first question
Yeah,
or the?
and consider supporting this for all those reasons. Special treatment. Also, you get access to our sexy blasphemous art, and you can get all of this for as little as $1 a month. And you, we couldn't do what we do, which is a lot of different stuff besides this channel, without our
Yes.
patrons. So we really do owe it to our patrons, and consider joining them in supporting us. Um,
Yes.
so let's go with the first question. The first question is by Nemi. Let's
Nimi.
see if I can fit this all in one YouTube question. Otherwise, I'm going to switch to Facebook. Um, and I'm also going to do a little editorializing for grammar. Why do many Muslims around the world hate Israel? Many say it is because of the Israeli Palestinian conflict, but I think there's something more to it. Is the Israeli Palestinian conflict merely an excuse to hate Israel, and in fact, the hate is derived from anti Semitic ideas? You would have more insight into this than me.
Um. Hmm. I mean, this is like a whole stream of its own, right? So, and the answer to this is multifactorial, right? You might it could it's a mix of politics and religion, and also yeah, it's just a mix of politics and religion, and also racism, right? Anti-Semitic viewpoints, right? It just all comes together, right? It's not it's not one of them. Because religion definitely has an influence, right? Islamic scripture is filled with anti-Semitic attacks on Jewish people, so that adds fuel to the fire. However, it can't just be that, because we have periods in the history of Islamic history where Jews and Muslims live side by side next to each other with no issues at all, right? Um, Modern day Spain comes to mind, for example. But that doesn't mean that Islam is not anti-Jewish. It is very much anti-Jewish. However, it takes just Islam alone is not enough of a factor for that to get you to where you are right now, right? It's a factor, but it's not the only. It requires more, right? It does like so. I don't like some people want to dismiss the role of religion, and those people are wrong. But some people will also want to make it seem like it's only religion and that's the only factor. That can't be it, because we have so many contradictory examples to that, right? So that's one. Um, then it's the political aspect of it. Obviously, when you have conflicts between two groups of people, they try to find characteristics within the group that you're against, for you to essentialize the problems that you're having with them and reduce it to their race, to their religion, or to their race, right? that happens everywhere. Like, for example, I don't know, if you have, group A versus group B fighting over land, then the group A is going to look at what group B's religion or race is, and collectively hold all of the group of people and be responsible, and just say it's because the people of religion B or race B are all inherently inferior or problematic in a certain way. Like, that's what happens, right? So you see that here, and that you see that with both their religion. And then another problem with that is that you see that extra here for two reasons. Like, the problem with religion and racism and religious hatred becomes extraordinarily more excessive compared to other places, because one, the hatred against the Jewish people based on ethnicity has been something that has been global, right? And has been the conspiracy theories and excuses to hate on them has been something that has been piled upon for thousands of years, for the past, I don't know, 2,000 years. People have been adding to it, like, layers and layers of scapegoating all the problems in the world or your countries. And there's just like a major, like, there's like a lot of stories and conspiracies and beliefs to build upon that is already there, that has been globally accepted as a way to blame an entire group of people for. So when you want to blame a certain group of people for something, when you have that much build up conspiracies and hatred already there, it's easier to just build upon that rather than creating new ones. So it's using Jewish people as a way to blame things on has been, you see that that's a global thing, right? It's not just there. But obviously, when you now, given that you see it everywhere, even when Jewish people are not in the conflict, you see that in the QAnon, you see that everywhere, right? Imagine how much more that would be when you're actually in direct conflict with the people who are Jewish, right? So that's that. And another reason why the ethnic tension becomes much higher because of that, because of the history of a hatred against the Jews globally, but also the religious tension will also be more than other places, because how the Islamic world has used Israel as a way to misuse, to use this conflict as a way to create unity when they have nothing to offer to their people, right? So this has become such a useful tool, being anti-Israel, for when you want to appease your Muslim population, or to be the hero in the story and create unity. Especially, you can see that done so effectively by the Islamic Republic of Iran, trying to be the hero in the region. It started like in Egypt, like this was done like it's not just Iran, right? um but another thing is that there are legitimate human rights violations by Israel done, right? And people can't people have always have a problem not generalizing what something that is wrong, instead of like looking at it and criticizing what's happening, to just like come up with generalized condemnation of an entire group of people. That's something that people are generally bad at. So it's not just Muslims that are bad at that. Everybody's bad at that, right? But then the problem here in Israel is that all of these things are happening at the same time. All right, like all of these things that other people you see other places, it's just like have the stars have aligned to make every single one of these things happen in this area. So you could see, that's why you see like an everlasting conflict that doesn't seem to want to end, right? That's because everything is perfect for the worst case scenario. Does that
And
make
to
any
top
sense?
it all off, we have nuclear armament involved. Yay!
Yes. Yes. That's that too. Yeah. But yeah, I don't. Yeah, I do, please don't act like I'm saying that it's not because of Islam, right? Religion always makes things more difficult. Like, I'm not saying that without religion these tensions would not happen. I'm just saying when these tensions are happening, when you add religion to it, it becomes a lot more difficult to solve and a lot more it lasts longer and becomes a lot more destructive.
I would agree. Music Guy is asking, what do you guys think about the unreported month-long anti-China / Pakistani government protests in Gwadar, Balochistan? One demand is opening the border from Iran and allowing trade with the country. Do you know much about? I mean,
No,
the
I
insurgency in
haven't.
Balochistan is one of the longest running
Yes.
insurgencies in the world, if not the longest. I don't know much about the conflict in more contemporary times, besides the fact that there is a lot of militancy that directly targets Chinese nationals because they don't like the Belt and Road Initiative in their area, for a number of reasons.
Well, I haven't heard about this one, but it's like, if I'm reading this right, it always amuses me that the Baluchis are these the Baluchis in the Pakistani side?
Yes.
Is that what I'm hearing? Okay. So you don't see that level of, I mean, you haven't seen that level of protest on the Balochistan on the Iranian side, right? And I wonder why that is. I wonder if the crackdown is going to be like, is it harder for the Baluchis on the Iranian side to have the same level of protests? Oh yeah, Music Guy is saying yes.
Well, I would just speculate and say probably yes.
Yeah, no, but it's interesting how the problems are on the different sides of the borders are different, right? Like, on the Pakistani side, you wouldn't talk crap about Muhammad or even try to be like, hey, Muhammad maybe is not the last prophet. Like, you wouldn't dare do that. But they actually get to have, like, the Baluchis actually have an actual protest. Like, okay, so it seems like they're sensitive about different things, because on the Iranian side is the opposite, right? On the Iranian side, people are like swearing left and right against the prophet. I mean, not like, it's not like it's public or anything, but it's still like it's a common thing. That people hate Islam and people are tired of religion, and they make jokes about the imams and the prophets, right? It's not like in Pakistan where like every single one of these people is getting, like, it's not as intense. Like, yeah, every once in a while, one person like Sohail Arabi gets in trouble, right? But you have a sea of people like just constantly attacking Islam and hating on it, right? Yet in Iran, you wouldn't. I think the Baluchis would have a much. I mean, maybe that's going to change pretty soon because protests are picking up in Iran. But you would have a harder time having a protest for the Baluchis, but especially protests that will scare the government about separation. Like, separation is a very sensitive, like, protests that are happening at the borders of Iran, and if by ethnic minorities like the Azer, like the Turks or the Arabs or the Baluchis, or the Bakhtiaris. Those are extremely sensitive things. Like, the government will be like, "Yeah, we're not having any of that." So that would be something that on the Iranian side it would be there less, but apparently you could do that in Pakistan. So it's very interesting how different authoritarian regimes are sensitive about different things. Music, even though they're both Islamic. Music Guy is saying they've been making basic demands like having clean water and so on, a whole list of them. Yeah, I mean, that's the Iranian side. I mean, are you talking about the Baluchis in Pakistan or the Iranians? I don't know. I haven't seen this protest.
In
Music Guy,
Pakistan,
thank you
that's
for
the context of his question.
So maybe, okay, so here's the thing. You can't, a lot of, actually, I shouldn't say that because that could make, no. So I'm going to say it, I'm going to say it in a different way, right? A lot of times that's the only things you could get to complain about, right? Because if you complain about other things, then you become then they're watching you. They're waiting for you to start complaining about some other things so that they have an excuse to attack you. I mean, that's for the Iranian side. I don't know how the Pakistani side works. Is the Pakistani government? I'm not very familiar with the Baluchis and the Pakistani side. Susie, do you know if the Pakistani side is like Is this a separation of the Baluchis is a big threat on the Pakistan side? Is that something that they consider?
Well, obviously, there's a diversity of desires in the Baluchi community, but there is in some groups, a very strong desire for separatism.
Yeah, but like, is that something that the Pakistani government is like considers to be like a legitimate, serious threat that they're like, suppressing, like kind of like the Iranian side, or no?
I'm not very familiar with this, so I can't really give like a good answer, but I would say yes. Given my very shallow understanding or knowledge of this. I mean, given that this is one of the longest running insurgencies in the world, this obviously hasn't been something that they've been able to fix or like control, and there's still very much a desire for that. And I know that within like the founding fathers of Pakistan, there was a lot of talk against provincialism, which is basically like, because Pakistan is built up of many different ethnic communities that don't actually have a lot in common, besides that they had an unhappy birth through Britain drawing their borders. So provincialism is kind of like disintegrating into ethnic groups. And so there's also that kind of spirit of it as well.
The Sistan Baluchistan province in Iran is like I think it's mostly Sunni, right? And that's what gives a whole bunch of more stronger separation element to it in the Iranian government's mind. Let me see.
Yeah, so D is saying China has stripped Baluch of their natural resources with Pakistan's blessing. Yes, thank you. That's more details into what I was trying to say about China's involvement. And also, D is also clarifying Baluchistan was promised autonomy and then forced into Pakistan.
Oh, no, Sunni.
And Rudrush is saying most people in Baluchistan are ethnic Pashtuns, which is interesting.
Wait, I thought they were Baluch.
Yeah, I think that I thought they were their own.
I thought they were Baluchi people. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to the next one.
Okay. So, next question is also from Music Guy. Music Guy is asking, Susie, in regards to moderating hate, misinformation, and incitement, what are your thoughts on this bit of info? Quote, 90% of Facebook's audience is outside of the United States, but 90% of Facebook's safety budget is inside the United States. So me not knowing the context of where this quote came from or all that, I'm going to broadly say that although it's not right, because obviously there's been tons of issues where Facebook is literally being sued right now for their involvement in the Rohingya genocide. It makes sense to me that so much of their investment on their safety budget would be inside the United States, given that they are a company that operates within the United States. Their main jurisdiction is within the United States. And that they have been subject to a multitude of congressional hearings about their influence on this country, specifically, let's say, elections. And they've come under very heavy fire for this. And the threat of regulation or people even advocating for Facebook to be broken up entirely. So I think them spending so much of their safety budget inside of the United States broadly makes sense as they try to tackle their home base, who they're answerable to, and also who ultimately could mess up what they have going on. It's the United States government. Yeah, Armin, what do you think about this?
Well, this was to you, so I'm not gonna.
Okay.
Yeah, this was directed at you, so I'm like, let's go to the next
one. So the next question is from Anne. Let me get this up really quickly. Anne is asking, I'm curious, can you name someone who doesn't demonize men and promotes more positive traits associated with traditional masculinity, who, unlike Jordan B. Peterson, does it from a more rationalist perspective? I actually have some ideas, but as you know, let's let the men speak first here.
Yes, this is good job. Good job. Well, I mean, us, me and Susie.
I guess.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
you
me
more
and
than
Susie. That's
me.
my answer.
That's
Wait,
really
okay.
your answer? That's it?
And promote more positive traits associated with traditional masculinity.
I would
Wait, actually, I
personally, I
changed
would
my.
just say masculinity, not traditional masculinity.
I don't think masculinity needs promotion. Yeah, I think like you should. I think like it just needs to not be shamed. Okay, because the
Yes.
idea of promoting masculinity, it means to me, it means like, hey, be like this, but you just be the way you feel like being. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand, like, why do you have to either shame or promote masculinity? If you feel masculine, then embrace it. If you don't, then don't. It doesn't need promotion. It doesn't need shame, and it doesn't need promotion. It doesn't need any of it. It's just, if you feel like, oh yeah, I feel like, oh my god, I feel masculine, I feel strong, me, look at me go. Right? Just like, okay, good, like you do, you like, love it, do it, I don't know, like, have fun with it. But I don't you think you do I don't think like we just need to organically let people just be the way that they're comfortable with. That's what I think, right? um there's accidental promotion of masculinity, which is fine, which is better, I think. You know what I mean? Like, you have like characters in movies or TV series or in novels that they happen to be masculine, and you're like reading a book and you just like relate to that character, and maybe you want to feel more masculine because you had a character that just like inspired you to be masculine. But that's not a promotion of it, right? That's just like, just organically it's happening. You just see people being in a certain way, and you look at it and like, oh yeah, that fits my character, that fits how I see myself very well, right? Or how I want to see myself very well. So I just want to be more like that. Or like somebody sees somebody feminine, and they're like, oh yeah, that fits my personality very well, I want to be like that, right? It's not like it's not an intentional promotion of it. It's just people just picking and choosing, like, how they want to see themselves based on what they relate to the most. I don't see any
Okay.
reason why it needs to be promoted. Yeah.
I think that a not traditional masculinity, just a healthy masculinity should be promoted. And what I mean by this is not as in this is how you should be. I mean, for those who are interested and inclined and feel naturally compelled to be self expressive in that way, they should have healthy role models. Um, Role models that promote good qualities and all are a bulwark against toxic behavior. So, for example, like pickup artists would be the antithesis of what I'm talking about. Um, I think for a lot of men who didn't grow up with male role models in their life, without fathers or other people in their community, there's a real need to have social figures who fulfill this role. And I think one person who I've come across recently that does this in a very interesting way is an Instagram account called The Tin Men. And The Tin Men is like a blogger, and I'm assuming it's a male who does this. I'm not actually sure. But I'm just going to assume it's a guy, creates infographics about basically men's rights issues, but from a progressive lens. And it's really interesting for me to just see a progressive argument for men's rights. It's the best steel manning of these issues that I've ever seen, and he presents a lot of data when talking about these issues. So I find that really important. And I also think lately I've been watching a lot of content from these two comedians actually on YouTube. Their names are ABBA, like ABA, ABBA and Preach, as in a preacher. And they talk about a lot of issues that men face in particularly young adulthood or becoming secure in themselves. And I think that there is a need for men to have like, you don't have to be this way, but for those who just, this is how you are and you like to be, for them to have rites of passage, for them to have healthy role models, and also for men to have spaces where they can be self-expressive. I think it's really difficult for men to find places where they can be self-expressive about their experiences, oftentimes without it being demonized by saying, well, what about what women go through in this regard? Blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, we can talk about that too, but right now we're talking about this issue. You know, it's like the same frustration we have when people are talking about Islam and then they're trying to do whataboutism with Christianity, right? I think it is necessary for men to have those spaces to talk about what they go through without that whataboutism that defers towards women. And also to have spaces where they do hold women accountable for toxic or bad behavior in their interactions with men, which is kind of difficult to find sometimes.
Some women.
Yes, exactly. So yeah. I don't know. Those are two sources that I really like. Now, ABBA and Preach, they're just comedians, but I think they have a really interesting view of the world, and I like to hear them talk about these issues because it's just giving me a different perspective on a lot of things.
I think that's separate from promoting masculinity. I think that's having good advice and father figures. That is not necessarily promoting masculinity, right? Like, for example, you could be a very feminine girl or a feminine boy who needs a father figure in their life, who doesn't need a promotion of masculinity. Do you know what I mean? Like, that could benefit from having a father figure. Do you know what I mean?
No, you're not understanding me.
Okay.
This is for a male audience. This isn't. It's to talk to the male people who need it. Like it's very specific.
You're not understanding me. Then I'm saying that people could benefit from that, even if they're not getting masculinity a promotion. Like, that is beneficial. That I mean, your suggestions are good. I'm just saying your suggestions are good for people who don't even want to be masculine. Do you know what I mean? Like, what you're suggesting right now, a boy that is feminine could equally benefit from what you're suggesting. Like, these are good suggestions for people, right?
Yeah, but I'm just talking about men in general.
So that's what I'm saying. Men in general don't, like, the question, right? Don't need to have masculinity promoted to them, right? What you're suggesting to people are just good suggestions and good, maybe role models or good advice that even a boy who's completely feminine and doesn't feel even the tiniest bit of masculinity in them, right? They benefit from, given that they could benefit from this, that means that this is not a promotion of masculinity. This is just a promotion of good advice, maybe to boys and men.
And, I actually think
good role models.
Like, well, I don't know.
I'm thinking these are
a man being comfortable in his self-expression, even if that self-expression is rather feminine, is a promotion of a healthy masculinity.
I don't think so. I think like what like a woman who is like, for example, a girl that is confident in expressing themselves, is she being masculine because she's confident in expressing herself?
No.
You know,
Someone can be firm and healthy in their manhood while having a feminine self-expression, and being comfortable and secure in that feminine self-expression is for them a healthy expression of their manhood.
so okay, maybe I just don't know.
Like
If
for
we
like
want
a butch woman, like a stone butch like lesbian woman, for her presentation might be very masculine, but that is still an affirmation of her womanhood. Like I know
I guess
stone butch women who at first glance you might think they're men, but if you try to use a gender neutral pronoun for them, they're deeply offended because they're like, this is all of this is still an affirmation of my own womanhood.
I guess I just don't want to lump in confident self-expression as masculine, right? Because some people are generally trying to not be masculine. Like there are some women and some men who want to be feminine, and if we promote the idea that confident self-expression is masculine, then what are we telling them? You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
we're talking past each other right now.
okay, I'm just confused. I
It's
just
okay.
think like, yeah, I just think like promote confidence and self-expression should be promoted to outside of the masculine feminine discussion, because it's good for everybody. And I also think that the advice that you give are good. I just think that that shouldn't be seen, in my opinion. Maybe I'm completely confused. I just think that shouldn't be seen as a promotion of masculinity. Um, I think that should be just seen as promotion of good advice that even feminine men or boys could use. That's how I see it. Yeah.
No, I think we actually agree. I just
Mhm.
don't think it's bad if it is for men and it's for
Yeah, but
promoting a healthy expression of their
that
masculinity, not enforcefully. I don't
so
think that's a bad
that's
thing.
what I agree that that's a good thing. I think your advice is very helpful. I just think like for men doesn't necessarily mean this is a promotion of masculinity. Do you know what I mean? I mean, something that is
Yes.
good for men could also be good for men who are not masculine. For men
Yeah.
and promotion of masculinity, I don't see that as this. Okay, that makes sense. All
Yeah,
right.
we actually are agreeing. I think we just talk about
Yeah.
it differently.
We're just using different vocab, like cement. It's just a
Yeah.
semantics thing. Yeah. Okay.
When this is cut, I'm very curious about people's comments below.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, by the way, Susanna, I think instead of writing the people's name, write patron question for now. I have an idea for how to do this later because a lot of people jumping in might not understand why we're like reading these questions instead of the live chat questions, which we will get to. But I think instead of the name, just put like patron question at the beginning.
Okay. Uh
Right.
Anne is also just commenting that Helen Pluckrose gives a much better and more consistent explanation about cancel culture than Armin. So, just
Okay.
by the way,
Wait, where does it say that?
on Patreon. And then there's also just this massive whopper of a comment from the Hindutva person that harasses us on Patreon. Should we? There was another one, but now it's disappeared. So I guess I'll
This
just. Should we read this? It's like an
this
essay.
giant what? No, this guys. This is not a question. It's not even a question. It's just a essay. There's no question being asked here. Guys, if you want us to answer these questions, keep them short so we could fit them, and make sure it's a simple question. This is not a question. This is an essay, so we're not going to be addressing this.
Okay.
All
Cool.
right,
No
let's
worries.
move on to the.
So
Yes.
now that means it's time for live chat question, guys. If, like I said earlier, If you want the special first class treatment, be sure to support us on Patreon. Link in the description below. You can get all of this for just as little as $1 a month. So, going into the first question is from Rudresh. Do you think there's an objective morality or all morality is subjective? We've talked about this a lot, so could you give a short answer?
It depends on what you mean by objective. Okay, if you by objective you mean like hard-coded within the fabric of the universe and existed throughout space and time before humans even existed, or before even conscious mind was there to observe the universe. If you mean that by objective, no, that more objective morality doesn't exist. But if by objective morality mean given a goal, which is by definition subjective, if given a goal of, for example, the goal of maximizing well-being for the largest number of people possible, if given that framework, assuming that we have that goal, is there other objectively better ways of achieving that? Yes, there are objectively better ways of maximizing well-being for the highest number of people. So in that sense, morality is objective. So no, so yes and no. No, if you mean independent from our minds within the fabric of the universe. No. Yes, meaning that scientifically there are better ways of maximizing well-being. In that sense, yes, there does exist objective morality.
Cool, nailed it. The Fox Strikes is asking, did the conference already happen? The one that Susie is supposed to speak at? Yes, it did already happen. This happened 2 days ago. And by the way, thank you everyone for showing up. It was so sweet to see so many Atheist Republic people flooding the chat. Like people who stayed up late at night across the world to see me speak. It was super sweet and it meant a lot to me. But yeah, I enjoyed it. And it will be released online eventually.
I was upset because the live chat was empty at the beginning, and we like told our like everybody here, like, oh yeah, Dolly was here, Soho was here, their music guy, Afshin was there, but we were like, we told everybody to be there so we could like hang out in the chat, and I was like so upset that the chat was closed at the beginning, and I'm like, what the hell, like, so like what was the point, like, and I was upset that maybe eventually the chat was open, but I was like, maybe some of our people left because they couldn't like, we couldn't talk at the beginning, but then they opened it, so that's fine. But
I became co-host, and then I let everyone in.
Yes, it did.
Did you know that? That was me.
That was you. But then as soon as the gates opened, the AR community just like burst open the live chat, and it was mostly us, right, talking, mostly the AR community in the live chat. So yeah, you guys are always there, so thank you so much for the support. Like every time Nisus goes and talks somewhere, you guys always show up, so thank you so much for doing that. It's so hard.
Show up and show out, baby.
yeah. It's just the level of support you guys show us is just like, I don't know how to thank you, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Next,
and yours. And also wait, no, and also wait, I have to also say you were fantastic. You were like, yeah, like you, I don't know how you do it, like you just organically, without like reading any notes or stuff, just come out so natural and so passionate, and you know your stuff, but it's so obvious, you could tell how much you care about it, right? It's not just that like, oh my god, how does she know all these things, but it's also like look at her, she's so invested in this, she's so
it's actually genuinely hard for me to speak on a panel, especially about that subject, because it's something I read about and think about all the time, more than I ever talk about on this channel. And so I have to be like conscious of the other people I'm with, because I would speak over everyone otherwise.
Wait, look at this. Somebody's saying he is flirting with her. Well, can you blame me? I mean, look at her.
He's just very comfortable. It means a lot to me, and I like it. So next question is from Sunny Sleep. Sunny Sleep is asking, what do you think of the Islamophobia laws heading towards the Senate? So for those who are not aware, I believe it was Ilhan Omar who originally drafted this, although I think it was maybe different representatives who actually sponsored the bill. But there is this so-called Islamophobia bill that just passed through the House, and now it has to go through the Senate. And partly what inspired this was the commentary of Representative Boebert towards Representative Ilhan Omar, that were definitely bigoted against Muslims. That's definitely part of it. But the Islamophobia bill, actually, it's called Combating International Islamophobia Act. Part of it it's just genuinely about anti-Muslim bigotry and how there is a rise of anti-Muslim bigotry globally. So that's not something I inherently oppose, recognition of that and steps to combat that. Now, it being called Islamophobia is obviously something that we dislike and we don't agree with, and we objectively hate the promotion of that term or any validation or legitimization of that term. I don't think it's likely that it will pass through the Senate. And actually today, Ex-Muslims of North America released a statement about this bill that might be interesting to read a little bit about.
I so wish this was called the anti-Muslim bigotry, whatever, so that we could come and endorse it and promote it badly. You know, we would be like, yes, pass this bill or whatever. Like, God damn it! Like, why couldn't you just call it the right thing? Like Ilhan Omar herself was calling it the right thing. It matters. It matters that you call it the right thing because we want it to work. But also, I don't like, Susie, I want to ask you about this. Is there anything in this bill that, like, what is it supposed to stop? Like, don't we have other laws that stops everything that this would stop? Like, what is it supposed to stop?
There's many different aims of it. So let's see. Let's go to Section 4, prohibition. Section 4, prohibition. No funds made pursuant to this act or an amendment made by this act may be used to promote or endorse boycott, divestment, sanctions, movement, or ideology, or used to promote or endorse a Muslim ban, such as one that instituted by former President Trump. So, that's not really it. So it specifically goes towards, there's a few like bullet points of what I'm looking at the actual text from the act right now. Section 64 is titled Monitoring and Combating Islamophobia. Oh, wait, no, 2. Section 2, Authorization for Establishment of Office to Monitor and Combat Islamophobia. So they're asking the State Department to create an office, quote, the Secretary of State shall establish within the Department of State an office to monitor and combat Islamophobia. That'd be the name of the office. So
that's ridiculous. Yeah, well, okay,
and then the head of the office would have a special envoy for monitoring and combating Islamophobia.
Let me finish. If you have an office like that, wouldn't they be in charge of like monitoring all form of hatred towards groups of people? Like, why would you have an office that is specifically, like, I don't understand, right? Like, if you have an office like governmental body that is like looking for like hatred towards like Muslims, okay, so let's say it was named properly, like anti-Muslim bigotry office, whatever, not Islamophobia, right? Like, what would they see, like a hatred towards Jewish people and be like, oh, that's not our department, like we're not funded for that? Like, would they be like, see like attack on like ex-Muslims, like people like trying to like find a way to abuse ex-Muslims, and they were like, that's not what we're being funded for. Like, if you go through the process of creating, I mean, which I think already exists, it probably exists, like governmental bodies that are supposed to track these things. I mean, that's what we have the FBI for, I think. All right. I mean, you're like, why would you be like, oh yeah, just specifically focus on this form of hatred and nothing else? Like, I don't. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. This is purely seems to me symbolic. Seems to me to be just to making a suggestion just to bring attention to something rather than actually doing something about it. And again, this is important. Like, anti-Muslim bigotry is a real thing that needs to be addressed. Like, we're not trying to like make light of that. But go on.
So, purpose of office. Upon establishment, the office shall assume primary responsibility for the following. 1, monitoring and combating acts of Islamophobia, capital I, and Islamophobic incitement that occur in foreign countries. Create reports relating to an assessment and description of the nature and extent of acts of Islamophobia and Islamophobic incitement. Coordinating and assisting a report relating.
Okay, wait.
Just a different
stop,
report.
Stop. No, okay. Just when it says Islamophobic incitement, does it define it?
No.
No.
Isn't that great?
Okay. That's fantastic. Okay.
That's fantastic.
So that's fantastic. Reading the Quran and just looking at problematic verses could be considered Islamophobic now. Jesus Christ. This is why you shouldn't. Yeah, this is horrible. This is going in the wrong direction. Ilhan Omar seemed to have the right language, and then she's about this, and then it went bad. I was celebrating the fact that she was saying like, this is a case of anti-Muslim bigotry, and here's some example of it. And then I was like, fantastic. She's doing this. Yeah, go on, Ilhan. This is great. And now she started using the word Islamophobia. I'm like, oh. And now this bill is like just using the Islamophobic title and the name of this bill, and now they're mentioning, oh, we have to like investigate Islamophobia, and they don't mention what Islamophobia means. That means us, right? So this is how you eventually group people like us with people who are sending death threats to Ilhan Omar, right?
Or even
you go from like
the Uyghur genocide, because this bill also explicitly mentions the
God.
Uyghur Autonomous Region.
Yeah. So what's Islamophobia? Islamophobia would be attack not just on Muslims. They would see anything anti-Islamic as Islamophobia. So all of a sudden, people like us are being grouped with people who are putting Muslims in concentration camps by the millions. We're just like the same now, right? We're like, hey, we have a problem with Islam. Islamophobic. China puts 1 million Muslims in concentration camps. Islamophobic. Potato. Like, we're now, great job, Susanna. Now we're committing human rights violations.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Can I read a statement that was released by Ex-Antifa? Because, Mohammed Syed and Sarah Haider are just excellent writers, and I think they framed the question very well.
Yeah, go on.
Very quickly. So today, Ex-Muslims in North America, go check them out, you guys. Wonderful organization. They released a statement about this issue, expressing their explicit concerns about this bill. And this is only a section of it. So, quote, combating anti-Muslim bigotry is a worthy goal that Ex-Antifa shares. From rising rates of hate crimes in the West to China's barbaric genocide of the Uyghurs, persecutions of Muslims is unacceptably alive and well. Nonetheless, the language of this bill leaves open an alarming vulnerability to abuse and overreach, said Mohammed Syed, president of Ex-Antifa. Nowhere does the text define Islamophobia, a term that religious authorities and fundamentalists have weaponized to conflate criticisms of Islam as a belief system with discrimination against Muslims as people. This leaves the office, meaning this office that's supposed to carry out these things, this leaves the office to carry out its actions in accordance with nothing but its own interpretation of the bill's vague provisions. Sarah, I also want to read a quick quote from Sarah Haider. Quote, when the Senate considers this bill, it must amend the text to provide a clear definition of Islamophobia that explicitly excludes the criticism of the Islamic religion, said Executive Director Sarah Haider. She noted that Section 3 of the Act, which establishes a new reporting requirements for annual State Department human rights reports, provides specific guidelines that references violence and incitements, quote, against Muslim people. Quote, if no such clarifications are added to the rest of the bill in the amendment process, the Senate must reject this legislation, said Haider. XMNA continues to firmly condemn anti-Muslim bigotry while advocating for the right of free thinkers and apostates to speak their minds, and it hopes that Congress can arrive at a solution addressing both of these issues.
That was just perfect.
Beautifully put. Doesn't get better than that.
That was, yeah. It doesn't get better than that. Like seriously, like I don't think people understand how much XMNA is a blessing to the United States and Canada. How can we make XMNA more influential in the politics of the United States? Like we need to. Oh wait.
Well, they're part of the Secular Coalition for America.
Yeah. But we need like politicians to be sitting. You know how we need to get to a place, you know, where how politicians have to sit with Muslim communities and care organization and stuff, just so that they hear them before like make comments and stuff. Like have somebody advise them about like how, you know, for them. We need to have them so to. XMNA would be the best candidate for them to hear the other side of everything as well, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I hope they get there. Also, how do you know everything, Sus? Like, how do you like
what are you talking
this
about?
question? No, like, how are you aware of like
XMNA releasing a statement today, like that kind of thing?
Yeah, like this is a surprise question in the live chat, and you just like armed with like, well, let me tell you what XMNA has released today, like what. Do you have eyes everywhere? Like I don't understand.
You know I do. Yeah. You already know that I do.
Okay, well, great. Yeah, well, you're like okay, such an asset. Yeah, good thing, guys. We have to make sure we don't lose Susanna because like I don't know what we would do without her. Okay, next question.
Next question is from blank name. Since you guys have to keep up with news and geopolitics, I bet you guys watch a lot of YouTube. You would be correct. How do you make sure YouTube doesn't become an addiction and disturb your daily life? Okay, well, I'm going to be honest. I think you asked the wrong people because we both stay excessively plugged in, I would say. For me, I don't consume as much content as Armin does daily. For him, it's like literally being injected into his veins, and from the moment he opens his eyes until the moment he closes his eyes. But for me, I am not always consuming content that's geopolitics. I can't. I turn my brain off with some like comedy stuff sometimes, or the only entertainment that I watch actually is Jersey Shore. So that's actually the only thing I watch for entertainment that's like a show. And that's just something because that heals my soul. Jersey Shore heals my soul. No matter what, it can always put a smile on my face.
Oh my God.
So for me, well, and also I do have a full-time job. So I have other commitments, you know, that I just can't. It's because of the strain of my commitments.
The content that I consume, it's very mindful. Like I don't see it as an addiction. It would be an addiction if I was just mindlessly like on the home. Like I'm never on the, like when I go on social media, I have a very intentional plan on what to consume, and is technically for me that's work. This is not me like, you know, just mindlessly going on my feed and just seeing what shows up, right? Like there's like for example on YouTube, I am specifically on the subscription part, not on the home. Like I'm not like seeing like what YouTube throws my way. There's certain channels that I follow and I need to see what the update is. Even on Facebook and on Twitter, I go in. Like the way I want you to think about it is not like, oh, I'm just with a shopping cart in a supermarket, just mindlessly like moving around, seeing what to buy, right? No, I have a plan on. I need milk, I need meat, I need vegetables. Go to the specific aisle, get it, put it in, and then get out, right? So when I go to YouTube or Facebook and Twitter, I'm not just like there mindlessly just trying to pass time, right? And like these are the contents that I need to make sure I get done. and I'm trying to get it done as fast as possible, because if I don't get it done as fast as possible, then I don't get to my educational videos, right? To my lectures. Like there are days, the days that I fail is the days that is the content that I need to watch took too much time and I didn't get to finish any lectures. So I try to get all the news and updates that I need to know about done, so that my afternoon is focused on finishing lectures, right? This is not an addiction. This is like very planned, mindful, um, you know, targeted consumption of content, right? That's why I tell people, like, don't spend time on the homepage, because YouTube is trying to send you stuff that gets you curious and just like interesting things that just mindlessly consuming, right? Be on the subscription page and just make sure you have I limit myself to like this many videos a day, and if I see there's more than that, I have to make the decision what to cut out. Like, oh my god, I need to see this update, but that's too many videos for the day, so I'm on an information diet. I like, no, you have to figure out what are the most important information that you need to get to this. And sometimes that would result in you guys asking me a question, and I'm like, oh, I haven't seen that. Well, I can't know everything. I have to go with the most important things that it's relevant to what I think this channel is supposed to be about, right? It's not an addiction because it's work, right? And on Facebook as well. When I go on Facebook, I don't just mindlessly just scroll. I'm like, I'm going to go to these specific pages, find what I want, and get out. Twitter as well, right?
I think this captures it well. Pacific Northwest Backcountry is saying "move with a purpose" is a phrase we use in the military. I suppose "consume with a purpose" would follow the same logic.
Right.
That's a good way of putting it.
The way I also look at it is, I am on an information diet, right? Every time I'm learning something, it shouldn't be a good thing to learn. It should be the best thing to learn, because every time you're consuming information, it's coming at a cost of not consuming another form of information. So what you're learning might be beneficial, but being beneficial is not good enough. It should be the most beneficial. Would this time would have been more beneficial, more useful if you were learning something else instead? That's what I'm always asking myself when I'm learning things.
Cool. So Dolly is saying, great explanation, Armin. This was in terms of your question, your answer about Israel and
Palestine. Could be in terms of anything. It could be just when you're talking, honestly.
Yeah, boy.
Also, okay. Wait, no. Also, somebody said, "I love the phrase information diet." Yes, that's a good. Okay. Not, I learned it from somewhere else. I don't know where, but yeah, let's go.
Ryan, or maybe Aryan, is saying, I'm an atheist and now I'm in my mid-20s and I feel like I don't have any goal to reach. For believers, they have purposes. They have a God to take refuge in. What can I do to feel better in my life? Personally, I would just find a cause that you're passionate about, or a hobby that you're passionate about. What are your interests? Just really dive into that. Besides finding a way to provide for yourself, which we all have to do in different ways. And maybe some of us are lucky to have what we're passionate be what provides for us. Besides taking care of your basic needs, what do you have fun doing? What do you wish was different about the world?
I mean, you're in your mid-20s, so I think even before you start doing something, you should go on a path of finding what you enjoy, right? Like Susanna's answer is good. Like let's say, for example, what you're passionate about, and you say like nothing. Well, then go on a discovery phase. Just try so many things and see what resonates, right? As you age, I think you start noticing that the things that give you the highest amount of sense of purpose are things that solves a problem for most people, for a large group of people. You know what I mean? Like if you ever see yourself as part of a solution to a problem in the world, if you ever get to see yourself like that, not like it doesn't have to be a big part of the solution, just a part of the solution, right? And like, I'm not saying like meaningful. Yeah, you don't have to go on this you don't have to like delude yourself to think like you are single-handedly like ending something like child poverty or something like that, right? But you are part, like among all the people that are each one of them some small part of the solution, you're also one of those people that are part of the solution. If you ever get to see yourself like that, that most people find the highest amount of sense of purpose and meaning that way, when they see themselves, when they see an ill in the world, a problem in the world, a source of misery in the world, and they look at themselves and they see what they're doing as something that is fighting that, right? That's the best source. That's the best way to find purpose and meaning, in my opinion.
And ultimately,
most people,
that
Yeah.
is the same seed behind what drives believers. They just have a different source of where they think that's coming from, right? But it's
Yes,
the same
exactly.
drive. They think that they're being part of the solution, right? And oftentimes
Yes.
that informs charitable work. But we obviously feel like that the rationality behind it is flawed. So yeah.
Right. If you want to go one step further than that, you could become a part of a solution in a sense, in a way that the effects that you have had on the world lives after you die, right? That is, if you could do that, if you could see that what you're doing will have lasting benefit to the world beyond your lifespan, then when you look at that, you get a sense of pride and satisfaction that most other things cannot achieve. Yeah.
Build a legacy for
Uh,
yourself within the collective.
well, okay. So Ariana is saying it seems harsh, but I don't care about the world. Well, learn to. Sympathy is something that you could exercise. Even if you think like you're selfish, then for selfish reasons, try to tap into that, because it's very satisfying, even if it's for selfish reasons, right? Sympathy and empathy are like muscles, right? If you exercise them, you will start noticing how good it feels to feed it, right? So it's not, if you don't have it, it doesn't mean that you're incapable of having it, right?
I
And
actually
also,
worked with a neuroscientist whose research was on actually proving that you can learn compassion. You can
yeah,
see it in a
yeah,
brain scanner.
do it for selfish reasons. Do it because
I was about to
people
say.
tell you that. Yeah, do it for selfish reasons, because like it is actually very enjoyable to feed that desire, right? um yeah, try it, and also, like, I also want to say that you say it seems harsh. No, it seems honest. It doesn't seem harsh, it seems honest. Like, you know yourself, and you're dealing with, the first step is not to delude yourself about what you need, how you are like. So that's a good thing, right? So I'm not going to be like, oh, you're a monster, how could you not care about the world, right? You're just noticing that you don't care. But I suggest try to create that care. You will not be disappointed. you
I
will
think
you will feel.
many people go through just a complete like nihilistic phase, a little bit of a doomer mentality.
Yeah,
Um
especially in the 20s.
oh
Especially in their
yeah.
20s.
But
Yeah.
to be able to thrive to a certain extent, you need to learn the joys that you experience from altruism. And this is well documented scientifically. And you can do it for selfish reasons. You can say, oh, well, it's less altruistic because I'm doing it for the own satisfaction that I get. That's fine. You know? And
Actually,
you can do that while acknowledging that there isn't meaning besides what you create for myself.
I don't even care for myself. Maybe I should begin to love myself first, but I don't know how. No.
I've been there before
Well, yeah. Okay.
many
Well,
times.
okay. Instead of trying to force it, treat yourself well. Like, do the things that would be good for you if you cared to love yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like, just do the things that you would have done if you love yourself, until, you know, just see yourself as two people. Like, the person, like, if you don't love yourself, if you don't care for yourself, then care for yourself as if it's another person. right?
To be honest, that I understand what you're saying, but that still doesn't work for me. I take care of myself because of the people that love me need me to take care of myself. And that's enough of a motivating factor. And one day I'll be able to do it for myself. But I'm not.
I
I'm
know,
not
but
there
that's
yet.
how it starts.
Yeah.
No, but that's how it starts. When you love yourself as if it's someone else, and you're not motivated enough to love yourself because you don't care about yourself, but then you love yourself and take care of yourself as if it's someone else that needs loving and caring. Eventually, you will start feeling that you're deserving of this care and love. Like it's something that will build eventually. Also, one thing I just want to say, you're in your 20s. Like a lot of people go through this phase in their 20s. Okay, so this is completely normal. This is not going to be the rest of your life, right? Yeah, exactly. Like Susanna, which like this is why
me
people
also
go
in my
through.
mid-20s, like, oh.
No, like this is not. This is a nihilistic phase that people go through in their 20s. Many people go through, and then self-love and care is something that you develop as you age, as you have more experience with life, right? So just because you are like this right now, it doesn't mean that this is the rest of your life. You will learn. Eventually, you care about yourself and go beyond that and care for others as well. Just keep experimenting until something works. Okay, just wash your hands off of it. Just like play around with it. Eventually something will just click. Yeah.
It takes time,
All right.
though. I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, you're cool.
So next question is from blank name. Blank name is saying, I'm currently taking a philosophy class. When you study it, you realize the limitation of human understanding. After reading Hume, I feel completely lost. I'm not sure whether I exist. So
Good. You have to. Okay, the best response to Hume's radical skepticism eventually was responded to by Karl Popper, right? So if you're stuck in the 1700s, 1800s age of Enlightenment age philosophy, you will get to the point where everything seems like up in the air. Like, but once you eventually keep coming to the modern era, everything starts making sense again. Wait.
So when I saw, because there's a second question from blank name that I'm just going to put in the same segment. When I saw blank name's questions about philosophy, I think it was literally the embodiment of this graph. So happiness versus knowledge of philosophy. And it's like depresso guy being like, maybe philosophy will improve my life, and then like over a short period of time it's like joy, like I've learned so many things, and then the longer you keep learning philosophy, it just turns into this little husk saying help. This is literally it though. This is knowledge of philosophy.
Okay. As funny as that is, I think the way okay, that is funny. I don't want to like deny that that's funny, okay? But the way you have to look at philosophy is categorizing body of knowledge that hasn't been properly given into its scientific field yet. Do you know what I mean? Like, philosophy is just looking at the questions and putting in the right context, and if philosophy, when done right, is organizing the questions you have about the world, and just framing it in with proper language, and making sure that we understand what it is that we're being asked and what the possible answers to that would be, right? But once you pass that phase, each one of these questions would be better answered with a more scientific way of looking at the world within a scientific field of what for example, if it's about, like, if you're asking questions about history, right, you could have childish answers like Hegel and be like, oh, like, there's the world is within history has a conscious, and it's at a conflict with itself, and it goes through these cycles. Just make up theories, just pull it out of your ass and just make up stuff and just call it philosophy, right? And even Enlightenment philosophers, they just like this was just like pure rationalism, like as in like you're just sitting on your chair and just thinking about stuff and just writing it down, right? But at some point, when you have organized these simplify, like good philosophy is also simplifies things rather than makes them more complicated, right? But at some point, when you have organized all these questions and know how to frame them, how to think about them properly, when you get to you realize by doing philosophy itself that the way to answer them is not rationalism, but it's empiricism, right? It's like going out and getting data from the outside world, right?
This is why I prefer psychology, because you actually go seek for observable phenomena.
Yeah, and then you have to figure out what is the best way of organizing observations and making sense of it, right? And then you realize that will become, so you do philosophy so that you could get out of philosophy. That's what I'm saying. You do philosophy so that you could actually finally get to answering them, and you could even use philosophy to figure out what is the best way of answering them. And using philosophy to answer that question, the answer is it's not philosophy. Do you know what I mean? So you the answer is
that's
science.
very true. That's very true. Wait, blank name. You should go watch a video that Armin did on his personal channel, and I think it was just called "The Problem with Philosophy." Wasn't that what it was called?
Yeah, but I'm not dissing philosophy. I'm just saying that you have to move past philosophy. At some point, philosophy will not have answers to these questions. Philosophy is just good for figuring out what the questions are and how to categorize them, and what's the best way to frame them, and what the possible answers would look like. But now to actually go and discover what the answers are, philosophy itself should lead you to the conclusion that the answer is not philosophy. That's the way I want to say it.
Cool. Yeah. Blank name was also asking about how do you get out of feelings of intense or immense uncertainty and skepticism because of reading too much philosophy. Do you feel like you kind of
you're
already
reading Hume right now? So you're reading Hume. So Hume will make you feel, gives you a sense of radical skepticism, right? You just need to continue studying philosophy until you get to the modern era of philosophy. Like, hey, once you're done with Hume, start studying Karl Popper, right? So he will address how you could actually be skeptical, but not as radically skeptical as Hume. Okay, so
otherwise you'll be in the mirror like this.
Right. Like, what is real? Is anything real? Right. No, like, so the problem with induction, but it's very funny because like Hume is like somebody who believes in science, is anti-religion, but when you actually start reading his problems with induction, you're like, well, everything in science is induction. So are we like dissing science by Hume, the rationalist? And he himself claims not to, right? He himself is like, no, like we need science, obviously. Like, but you're telling us that you can't tell anything by induction. It was like, well, but we have to pretend that we can. But no, he doesn't have a satisfying answer himself to what, if we want to get, if induction can't tell us anything about the world, then why do we have science? Like, he himself doesn't have a very satisfying response to that. But then we get all the way to modern day philosophy of science, right? Which is, then you will see why science works and why we do need it, right? So just mature out of Hume at some point. What were you gonna say, Susanna?
Oh no, that was it.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I thought you wanted to add something. Okay.
Next question is from Mustafa. Hi, Mustafa. Do you think the beer bug, meaning the disease that's going around for the past few years, do you think the beer bug is the reason why more people are turning to secularism and ushering a new wave of modernism, like during World War I and Spanish flu? Or, yeah, the Spanish influenza. So Basically, yes. There have been a lot of studies about this over the past 2 years, and church attendance is the lowest it's ever been. Now, obviously, it's partially because of restrictions, but then there's been also a lot of studies about how people just aren't coming back when they can. I think it. I don't know if it's necessarily secularism or atheism or even non-belief, so much as people are actively distancing themselves from organized religion. And oftentimes, what comes the next step out of that is kind of a diffuse spirituality. So, I've read a couple articles about that recently. But yes, this is definitely a big shift that's happening culturally, at least in North America. Um, and I think it's likely to continue. On the other hand, there are
Yeah.
other people who have become more fervent than ever, as is likely to happen during times of hardship.
We need data for this. I don't know if it's true. Like I know, like on Iranian news, outside of the country, and stats were showing that more Iranians were questioning religion and God because of this disease, right? But I don't know globally. I mean, secularism was growing even before all of this. Like, is this having? So I don't know how much of that growth is just because of what was happening already before, and how much of it is because of, like, it's going to be really hard for you to separate, to measure the difference, right? Like for
No,
people,
there
right?
has been stuff about this in North America. Like we've talked about it on the
Okay.
news a lot.
Oh yeah, you're right.
I just
Yeah,
can't
but like, did they?
remember specifics off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
I could tell you personally, having been using this against people who used to pray for a cure, right? And then like the jab came, and I was like, "You've been praying for a year, and there was no answer, and now the scientists give you the answer. Like, see where your loyalty. Maybe you should switch loyalties to our side. Come to our side,
Uh-oh.
right?" So I've been like emotionally been manipulating people to be like, look who's answering your prayers. It's the scientific community, not God. Um, yeah, I've told that to people who who prayed about a cure. So I don't know if that had the
That's very
effect.
interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
Ray, the producer, is asking us about the Islamophobia bill. We already talked about this earlier, but saying, is it doomed to fail in the Senate? Longer term ramifications. This is one thing we didn't address earlier. I
don't
don't.
know.
I don't think it's going to pass the Senate. I find that very unlikely.
I don't know. We'll see.
Here's a question from Dolly. What do you think about the Russian-Ukraine conflict as Russia is preparing to invade Ukraine and keep threatening U.S. to stick with the Minsk agreement? This is juicy.
I think Russia is having internal problems, and they just want to be like, me strong. Look at me go after external enemies to distract from internal problems that I'm having at home. That's what usually, because by the way, it's completely idiotic, right? Like this is like this, short term it might help with Putin, like with elections and like excuses to look like the strong person. But this shows like Putin is really like, this is really bad for Russia. Right? Like, yeah, keep alienating Russia from the world powers that be, and just like separating it more and more from the rest of the civilized world. Like, what like the benefits of this is to Putin, and the cost of this is going to be to the Russian people, like economically, like just invite more sanctions upon your own people, like so that you could just win elections and stuff. Like, how evil do you have to be? Seriously.
Uh-oh. I've watched a really interesting video. I think it was on Caspian Reports about how the actual geography of Russia mandates a certain amount of expansionism that I thought was interesting to consider. And I can't really articulate why right now because I saw it a while ago. And they also talked about just kind of like this phantom longing for the dominance of the Soviet era and just having so much under geographical control. And so I think it is also part of that, like a desire to rebuild that kind of empire.
I'm happy with the strong reactions by the Biden team and all. Yeah, but let's continue.
So there's several people asking us, did you watch the Jordan Peterson episode with Muhammad Hijab? Would you review it, please? At least the part where they talk about the scope of peace in Islam.
I was gonna watch it with Susanna. So I saw it and I'm like, I'm not gonna watch this. I'm gonna watch this with Susanna. And today Susanna was like, I already watched it. So
well, you didn't communicate that to me.
I assumed you would be thinking the same thing. So no, I have not watched it, but apparently one of us already has. So
I watched it in preparation for today because I knew people were going to ask us about it, Armin. So do you think you're going to do a review of it? Because you were talking about doing that earlier.
Maybe. I'm having so much fun going after Hinduism, but we'll see. Yes,
it's pretty easy too. Just to give my quick impression, I appreciated how Jordan Peterson really was, like, you could tell he really went into that conversation with good faith, and it just reflected how I think he's a really nice person, even though I disagree with him. And I felt like he could have asked more specific questions about the problems in Islam. This is his want. Like, it got very into kind of meta narratives of Islam. Instead of being like, wait, this specific like policy or mandate contradicts what you're saying here. Wait a second. But there were also a couple funny moments to it. So if you guys haven't seen on Apostate Prophets channel, actually, maybe we should watch it right now. That'd be so much fun.
No, that's fine because we have too many questions. We could do a stream.
No, it's less than a minute long though. AP did a very quick edit. It's so funny. I want to see your reaction to this.
No. Let's do it later because I want to compare that. No. Let's do it later. I want to do it later. I want to compare that to. I saw AP's edit of it, but I also saw Muhammad Hijab posting a short clip, and I do want to do that side by side next to each other to compare them with each other because that's very interesting. I do want to even though I haven't watched it yet, I do want to say I'm expecting Jordan Peterson to just have an assumption. Like, the way I think Jordan Peterson thinks about these things is that when you talk about middle narratives, right? He looks at these like religions and fictions and stories and myths as if there was like a purposeful plan ahead of time to construct something like Christianity, Islam, or the Greek mythology, or Pinocchio, or whatever, or Peter Pan. Like, to set the foundations of like a civilization. Like, to me, it seems like it's the other way around. To me, it seems like the myths are the result of the foundations of civilizations. Like, they're not their roots. They're like a mirror. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're not like the foundations of the building, and then the building is built upon them based on what the narratives are purposefully there to make society. It's not like a blueprint. It's not like certain people got to like, oh, here's the blueprint of Islam or Christianity or Greek mythology or Pinocchio or Peter Pan, and now let's like make society reflect our blueprint, right? It's not a blueprint. It's a mirror, right? It's more like the foundations of civilizations organically evolve the way they are, and you see a reflection of what people cared about in the myths that they create. So the myths are helpful for us to educate ourselves and to investigate, to see what do these people's goals were, what were their fears about, how did they saw the role of this or that, or this person, or father in society, or the slave, or blah blah blah, right? That's what the myths are useful for. It's not like useful to see, like, let's see how these people purposefully decided to build the foundations of their, so when Jordan Peterson, I'm assuming, I don't know, I'm going to watch that later, when he looks at Islam and he's like, what is the meta narrative, he's trying to see what was like this semi-divine or goal of the people who decided to sit together to make the myth, as if they were thinking about the world today, like as if they were thinking about 1,000 years from now, as if they were thinking about like not what was actually happening, which makes myths a reflection of the values of the time, was just internal politics, right? It was just like internal discussions between tribes, like if this story gets merged with this story, it's more of a reflections of short-term needs specific to that time, these two tribes getting together. Or if this story tells that these people are evil, it's because these people had a problem with those people, and now it's reflecting in their stories. It's more immediate, it was more short-term, it was more selfish and more political than what Jordan Peterson tends to like. Just go compare, for example, the way Jordan Peterson talks about the New Testament, and then go look at actual history about how the New Testament was created. You know, go look at like scholars like Bart Ehrman and see how they discuss how the New Testament came into being. It's not at all the way Jordan Peterson imagines it. It's not at all that like that. It's not at all like this, yeah. So I'm assuming the way he investigates Islam if he questions Muhammad Hijab is to try to find the middle narratives, the same way that was the foundations, the same way he thinks about Islam. Like he's going to probe him. I'm assuming he probed him in a way to get into that, as if
Yes.
instead of looking at the political nature behind what made Islam the way it is. You know what I mean? Am I correct about that? That's what he was trying to get at, right? Okay, yeah. So I haven't even watched that. I know where this is going.
Yeah, I know it's really interesting because like flat out the gate they make what is, I guess, basically a type of naturalistic fallacy, like straight away. I don't know. It seemed so obvious to me. They're talking about different studies about our propensity towards a belief in a higher power and how this is seemingly observed in early childhood, where I would need to go look into those studies myself because I had some serious questions about that. But just because they're like, oh, well, I think an instinctual argument is much better than a propositional argument. I'm like, just because we have an instinct towards something, that doesn't actually make it true outside of ourselves. Like, that's so obvious to me.
This is basically the same problem that we had with like rationalism instead of empiricism. Like these people are just like, you have like religious scholars actually going and looking for evidence to see how these stories came about. And then you have people like Jordan Peterson that are just sitting and like, well, this feels like this to me. And like, okay, sure.
Yeah, I think it was
right.
interesting though. Jordan Peterson's reaction to Muhammad Hijab reciting the Quran was also hilarious.
Yeah, that's what I want to. That's the part that I want to review. That has been. I think the way
he was basically
Muhammad
like,
Hijab,
"Why would you do that?" Like.
why did you do that to me? Why did you do that to me?
No,
Yes,
I have
like,
to say
okay.
something. Who set up Muhammad Hijab's audio? His audio is shit the entire time, and he's sitting in front of an expensive microphone. I'm like, who did this? Like, what's the point of putting all this money into this microphone when you sound like shit? And Jordan Peterson sounds like he's sitting right next to you. So the contrast is so stark. It was annoying me so much the whole time, and I know it's going to really piss you off, Armin.
Okay. Let's get to.
Well, we've been going for a while, so I think this should maybe be our last question. Actually, okay, there's 2 questions in the live chat that I really want to address.
Okay.
Well, also, I see that Armin starred Susanna is fine as hell, though.
I had to start that one.
Thank you. So I will answer a question shortly that I know Armin does not have interest in, but this is something I'm very interested in. So Ghost Bunny is asking me, Susanna, I want to dive into the psychology of cult mentality. Do you have any resources or books that would be helpful? Yes, I do, girl. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to want to get is, where is it? You are going to want to get Combating Cult Mind Control by Stephen Hassan. This is made for, the populace. This is made for people to read that have no background in psychology. It's very easy to understand, and he presents numerous different models as well as his own original psychological model of how cult abuse happens. And it's highly informed by different social psychological theories, and this is a very easy thing for anyone to understand. And it's also interesting because it includes a lot of personal stories of people who went through cult abuse. The second thing that you're going to want to get, give me a second. Okay,
I see some.
The second book that you're going to want to get is Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism by Dr. Robert J. Lifton. Now, Robert J. Lifton is this book is the seminal text on brain control or thought reform, or what we now know as brainwashing. He studied people who escaped Chinese communist thought reform camps. A lot of people don't know that the word brainwashing actually comes from Chinese to describe what happened to people under communist control. So this is hefty. This is for people who have more of a psychological background. He presents kind of the original model of how thought reform happens. He has 8 criteria. It's very good. And Robert J. Lifton in general, just look at his work. He's studied several other cults, and he also has a whole book where he interviews Yahtzee, as in the bad people from World War II, the Yahtzee doctors. And he has lots of different models for how these things happen. It's so interesting. And he was a Navy psychiatrist, and he's still alive today, but he's like the king. And this book, Combating Cult Mind Control, is actually written by a cult survivor himself. So those are my main suggestions. Now this is
nerding out.
I got this. I mean, she came to the right place. Yeah. So, this is an interesting question. I think we should close on this. Ray, the producer.
Wait, there was somebody who was complaining that we didn't get to her question, so we'll do that one as well because it's just a yes or no question. We'll get to that as well. But yeah.
Ray, the producer, is asking, do you think the term ex-Muslim needs to be updated, especially with several ex-Muslims aligning themselves with far right-wing movements? They're not necessarily rational. Is this a concern? Okay, well, as a never ex-Muslim, I have to say, no, that's ludicrous. There are other people who are atheists who are also on the far right. I don't agree with them. That doesn't make me any less of an atheist. Since when does a label that you use to describe yourself suddenly become an endorsement of everyone else who uses that label? It doesn't. Simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, for us to do that, it would mean like we're kind of suggesting that our group, our ex-Muslims, all of us are fine, are good, we have no problematic people. Like, we don't want to pretend like, because if you make a new group with a new name, obviously there's going to be problematic people in that group as well. We shouldn't claim that we're like all people without, atheists or ex-Muslims. We're saying ex-Muslims shouldn't be seen as inferior to other groups of people. Like, they shouldn't be mistreated. And we don't claim that ex-Muslims are all great people. We have racist ex-Muslims, we have homophobic ex-Muslims, we have transphobic ex-Muslims, we have just ex-Muslims that are just pure like evil, I guess. Like we have, obviously we do, because we have many ex-Muslims. So it's not like there's something within being an ex-Muslim that makes you immune to all these other issues. So what's the point? What would be the statement that we're making if we're trying to keep making a group that doesn't have any problematic people? Like, are we trying to claim that we are superior, that we don't have, in fact, we should highlight them. We should be like, look, we have our fair share of assholes, right? We don't claim, we don't want to hide it. We don't want to whitewash it. In fact, we should use it as a way to show that unlike other groups of people who want to completely whitewash their problems, we don't want to do that. We want to shine a light on it and own it and be like, yeah, this is, this is the garbage that we have to deal with, right? So yeah, I really quickly two things really quick. One was just a yes or no. So Megumin is saying, giving me a suggestion. Maybe one day I will do this. It's very interesting. I don't know if I get to it. I'm focusing on Hinduism right now, so that's a quick answer. This one also a quick answer. Gordon Fiala saying, what is your ethnicity and do you find it to be significant to your what is that word? Cognizance and behavior. Oh yeah, cognition. So no, I don't give a crap.
What is your ethnicity? No.
Yeah. Like, yeah, no. I don't even the least. My ethnicity says the least about me. I mean, I can't tell if I had to choose between my hair color or my ethnicity on what it says about me and my behavior. I don't know which one to pick. Do you like? You know what I mean? What about you? I mean, you kind of wait. No, you're different. You're kind of like sometimes. I actually like it when you sometimes talk about being, I don't know, Scottish and my people. I know you're saying it in a joking way, but it's kind of cute when you do that. Okay, I like it. I like it when it's like done in a jokey way. You know what I mean? Like when people like make it like they're not being serious about it. They're like, like if somebody is like Persian and they're like, yes, we Persian people, this and that, and we're like, we used to be kings and we had an empire. I like want to puke. I want to puke. Okay, but if someone does it jokingly and makes like in a cute way, I mean, like we be kings, like I don't know, like something like that. I just laughs at it. Then I like I can appreciate that. So when Susie, for example, does that, when she says like, "Oh my people," the song of my people.
I hear bagpipes playing, and I'm like.
I think that's adorable. That is adorable. Yeah. Okay. If it's done in a joking way, I like it.
I think Armin and I also have a very different relationship to these things. So you grew up in a country where your ethnicity is like highly culturally dominant, right? And then I grew up in a country where my ethnicity has been consumed into a different racial category of whiteness, right? So I don't have a real connection to my Scottish heritage. I know that I have it and I'm curious about it, but it's not something that was actively a part of my life or the way my family operated or the way I was raised, right? So to me, it's not something that is informative about who I am. It's just an interesting fact about how I came to exist in the world that I'm curious about. So like I know what clan that I'm from. Like I know what part of Scotland my clan came from. But I'm not I have like, kind of a light affinity for Scotland. I'm like, yes, independence. Like the Brits screwed up, like all that stuff. But it's not like it's not a real felt identity. Whereas for Armin, he associates someone being really into their Persian identity with a bad taste in his mouth that's accompanied by Persian nationalism and racism. Like, so there are very different experiences.
Like ethnic supremacy and crap like that. And an inferiority complex that you're trying to make up with because of your history. Like oh, we're crap now, but we used to be an empire. I promise you, we were an empire. Look at our history. Look at how big our map was. Like, please look. Don't look at us now. Look at our history.
Yeah.
Like okay, like Neptune is saying like, but Persians were great and their empires were great too. Yeah, but I don't feel any connection to that. I feel like my connection with you guys right now in the live chat is much like who okay, like what does that got to do with like us today? Like, you know what I mean? Like oh, you these are my people. Like, why? Like, just because you happen to be born within the borders of the events that happened in that area, like
my clan had a tartan. This is our tartan. Every clan has their own pattern, and this is mine.
Oh my god. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of cute. I guess the way you're doing it is kind of harmless, but my experience with it has been so harmful, like such an excuse to look at Arabs as inferiors, look at Afghans as inferiors, look at Turks and Lurs, and I don't know. It's just like such a toxic thing. You know what I mean? And I just feel like I don't feel any connection to that. Like, I don't feel why. Like, what does that got to do with me? Like, I feel like a stronger connection with Susie than like some other guy that I don't know just because they happen to be Persian. You know what I mean? What does that got to do with me? Like, it has nothing. It has no relevance to me.
Yeah. For me,
I mean, the only relevance I guess
I'm like, look at this is my family's crest. We had a motto, like, you know.
Yeah. See, like a lot of people ask me, like, why then, Armin? Why is making if you feel no connection, like emotional connection to? I mean, I feel nostalgia because I was born there, I was raised there. Like, there's nostalgia is something that I feel, but people say like, if you don't believe in like, I do also believe in civic nationalism, as in like I do believe that the concept of a nation and borders to be the right way of managing geographical places. Like, I see the usefulness of the concept of a nation. So civic nationalism is something I believe in. But in other forms of nationalism, which I won't get to the definitions there, I don't see that. Like, I just see that as toxic and harmful, especially when it comes mixed with ethnic nationalism. I mean, that's the most harmful ways of. But then people ask me, why are you making Persian shows if you don't feel any connection to that? Well, because I speak Persian, right? So I could be, I feel that I could be useful given that I speak the goddamn language. If I spoke Arabic and Persian, I would be making Persian shows and Arabic shows. Like, one of my greatest regrets in life is not taking Arabic seriously in school. I took it seriously enough. Like, we hated Arabic, right? Because we thought, oh, this is a foreign language that is being forced upon us, right? But given that I was studying, it was. But like, given the fact that we were studying it for 6 years, I might as well learn how to speak it properly. So I could, like, now how much more powerful my activism would have become if I knew how to speak Arabic properly. Like, it's so sad that I don't, right? Yeah. But again, one reason why we hated Arabic so much, it was because it's not just because the government forced us to learn Arabic in school. It was also because we saw it as Arabs are like, maybe like Arabs, like, that's the language. Really? That's the language we want to learn? Like, not French, not, I don't know, Spanish, not English, Arab? Like, what a useless thing to learn. I keep spitting today. But where did he get that? Where did he get that mindset from? From that sense of racial supremacy, right? Mm-hmm. Like, even though I was somebody that was proud of not having that sense of racial supremacy, I was still felt that, I don't know, maybe French would have been better to learn than Arabic. But now I think about it, no, Arabic is a lot more useful to learn than French. What are you talking about? Like, what's the purpose of learning French? 22 goddamn countries learn speak Arabic. And like, imagine how much more useful to anti-Islamic activism would have been if I knew Arabic, right? So what a waste of 6 years of opportunity that I could have taken this seriously instead of learning Arabic enough to pass tests. By the way, we aced our test even though we don't know how to speak it. Like, you just learn how to pass tests, right? But if given that it was right there in front of me, if I have taken it seriously, I now would have been fluent in Arabic. What a missed opportunity. Yes.
Before we close, I've seen a lot of people in the chat asking us to talk about violent passages in the Vedas, and there were a lot of people talking about like Dalit atrocities and asking us to talk about issues that Dalits faced by caste Hindus. And I'm going to tie this in. I would like to make a monthly recommendation because I don't usually make those. And this is all going to come together. So recently, I have started to study a bit more of the work by Ambedkar or Periyar. And I think people who are interested in anti-casteism or South Indian Tamil movements will be really interested in this once I learn more about it and continue my study. And then I want to bring it to you guys. So look forward to that. But my monthly recommendation is to go watch this movie that is streaming on Amazon Prime. It's called Jai Bhim. It's a Tamil movie, and it's available in 5 different Indian languages, and then they have English. They have all the subtitles, but go watch it in the original Tamil. It's an incredible movie about this human rights lawyer in the 90s who helps this pregnant woman from a tribal community in Tamil Nadu figure out what happened to her husband, who was falsely accused of a theft and then just kind of disappeared in police custody. And it's about a lot of the issues that it's about police brutality. It's about casteism. It's about fighting for justice in this area of India. And it's a really, really good movie. So go look up Jai Bhim, especially if you're not maybe familiar with the issues that tribal people specifically face in India. And I cried several times. I think I'm going to watch it again soon because it was so good. And I highly, 5 out of 5 stars. It's really interesting. There are so many subtleties to the film, like how the lead character, the lawyer Chandru, he's like a low-key atheist, and I didn't notice it until later in the film, but like you pick up on these things slowly. I really, really enjoyed it. Really, really good. So go check that out.
Yeah. Also, check out the upcoming streams on our homepage. We are doing more streams about Hinduism. We're going to be discussing caste in Hinduism. We're going to be discussing sexism, violent verses in Hinduism. We're going to have multi-decade plan. Like, we're just getting started on addressing Hinduism because there's not that many channels that are looking into Hinduism criticizing it from a scriptural perspective, and we're just on a learning phase right now. But we're going to keep doing streams. I wish the criticisms were more nuanced. Like, I was hoping, like, I did a stream on violence in the Gita, and the criticisms of us is so childish and useless. Like, people are just getting triggered and just be like, oh, you just don't get it, you just don't understand it. Like, they don't have a nuanced take on why we're wrong. Like, I'm hoping that we could, and the crap that comes at us is so high that even if somebody has a good criticism, it just gets lost in all of that. Like, I'm hoping the quality of the pushback, because I want to improve our criticism of Hinduism, but I think like most of the people who get butthurt over us attacking Hinduism, they're just so childish in the way that they want to defend it. They're just like, they're hateful and they're childish and they just want to attack you, and like and they're just so butthurt. Like, you could tell how butthurt people are by the number of emojis they use in their messages. They're like, the number of
laughy face emojis or the number of tears on their cheeks.
Joy, yes. That's the number one emoji that you use when you want to hide your butthurt, right? Like, when you're like raging so high, but you want to like act like you're not, then just instead of putting one emoji with like a laughing and tears, you just put like 20. Like, I am not upset. I'm laughing. I promise I'm not I promise I'm not raging. I'm just laughing at you. I'm just Okay, so that's how
I
it works.
think
But
our criticism of Hinduism will not get better by people criticizing our criticism. Our criticism of Hinduism will get better by studying people from South Asia who rejected Hinduism, by studying South Asian
Mhm.
rationalists. That's how it's going to
Right.
get better. And that's what I'm doing.
Yes. Yeah, but you're doing a great job in studying all this. But I feel like both of us are like studying Hinduism more, but I think you're doing it more from a political on the ground perspective. You know, and I'm doing it more from trying to learn more from a scriptural perspective, and his, like going into figuring out. And honestly, like, I have to tell you, like, people like, oh, um it's so much more complicated than any other religion, right? um like just to make sense, and I think like that helps Hinduism get away with how ridiculous it is, because they just hide it in this high degree of complexity as a shield, because everything you want to address, I mean, look at the way that they're, look this, I'm using this chart as a way to make sense of everything,
Oh,
right?
Jesus
This is,
Christ.
yeah, this is their scripture, right? So so every time I'm like now studying Hindu scripture, I keep having to refer to this document just to just to
Hmm.
understand what is the nature of the scripture, and the degree of authority and legitimacy it might have, and the context with it, with, it's just like, it's,
Mhm.
when it comes to, like, for example, Islam, we have the Quran, right? And we have the Hadith, and we have the tafsir, right? That's it. Okay, so it makes sense. Okay, so like the Quran is the revelation from God, the tafsir is a commentary on the Quran, we have the Sirah, which you shouldn't be taking that seriously. And we have the
Mhm.
Hadiths, which is like some of them are authentic and some of them are not, which is the sayings and doings of the Prophet Muhammad mostly, right? That's it. You got, like, once you get there, you get it. And again, with Christianity, you have the Old Testament, the New Testament. The New Testament has a couple of Gospels and some letters and the Book of Revelation. And you just understand, like, okay, this is like simple categorization. You understand where everything's supposed to be. But look at the mess that this is. And each one of these has a different purpose. It has a different degree of authority, and it's interesting because some of these are supposed to have a higher degree of authority, but are less famous. Like, like the Gita, given that it's here, it should have a high less authority than some of these Vedas over
Mhm.
here. But the Gita is the most famous, like in modern
It's the
day
most important.
Hinduism. It's the most famous one, right? So it's kind of like, yeah, like Neptune is saying, I would love a stream on Hinduism by Armin. Yeah, what do you mean you would love? I've, like, guys, we have started doing this. Like, again, I'm starting a journey, and this is going to be what I'm going to be doing for the next couple of decades. Like, we already have done one stream, and then another stream is coming. Guys, make sure you're not just subscribed. You also have to hit the bell button, because I'm going to be doing streams on Hinduism a lot. And if you're subscribed, you're not going to know when I'm going live. You have to actually hit the bell notification and after you hit the bell notification, you have to select all. That's the only way that YouTube is going to let you know when we're going live. So make sure you do that, right? Yes,
It's
and each,
really,
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
it's really interesting. I've started taking online courses about Hinduism and also studying people who rejected Hinduism. It becomes clear so quickly how the idea of a Hindu majority has never existed. It's an illusion. It's a
No,
lie that has been used by both, like, BJP and the right, and it's
British
been used by Congress too. There
and the
is no
British.
Hindu majority. It's a casteist society. And the idea of a
Yeah.
Hindu majority only comes forth when it's needed for political dominance.
Well, it
And
was it
it's
was it
also
was
interesting for me to consider how, to some cultures, Hinduism is just as much as a foreign and invading force as, maybe not just as much, but it is seen as a foreign and invading force, the same as Christianity and Islam. You're like, this is foreign to us. You speak these holy words, our ceremonies, in a language we don't understand. It's brought to us by the Aryans. Like, what the heck is this? This is used, and you say your language is too holy for us to even hear because we're so inferior. Like, this isn't part of our culture. I don't know. It's very interesting for me to think about, and also in contrast to how whitewashed it is. Everything I've learned about it here in America.
I just got triggered.
Oh no. Why? Okay.
I didn't even know what to say.
I mean,
Selva
maybe he didn't say that it's not violent.
I know, but I still okay. Selva is saying Gita is famous because it's the less violent in Hindu holy texts. Okay, so it's amazing. It's so ironic. That the Gita is actually famous for that, right? Given that the Gita is actually the most violent scripture in all of Hinduism, and I would argue in every scripture. Right, guys, go look at the stream that I did on Hinduism being the most violent religion scripturally, not effectively, but scripture. It is because of the Gita that Hinduism will, from a scriptural perspective, it becomes the most violent religion. It's so amazing that this text that is the most violent text in Hinduism is actually famous for being the least violent text in Hinduism. It's unbelievable.
Well, it's interesting because someone else was...
the impression people have relative to what reality is so 180 degrees, like it's just so upside down. It couldn't be farther from the truth. But yeah, go on.
Well, Aryaman was saying earlier, like, about Travakas, who's just Brahmins who basically rejected Hinduism. But did they reject Brahmanism? Did they reject caste superiority? That's something I need to understand more.
Yeah, but again, what you consider even people who rejected Hinduism is now becomes Hinduism because it's just within India. I mean, there's no real definition of what Hinduism is. Like, are we talking about every goddamn ideology that comes out of India becomes Hinduism? Like, if you fight Hinduism within India, that becomes Hinduism. It's just the fact that it's very interesting because Hinduism can be a one thing when you need it to be a force against a force of hatred, right? Then it becomes one unanimous thing, right? But when you attack it, all of a sudden it becomes this vague thing that you can't even point to. All of a sudden it becomes all over the place. All of a sudden it becomes very hard to define, right? So it's a very, it's just like, imagine these little particles all around. It's kind of like it could be a wave or matter at the same time, right? When it just turns into something unified and strong and well defined when it's on an attack mode. But then you attack it, go what do I attack? How do I criticize it? What is even Hinduism? There is no Hinduism, right?
Well, so I think it's partially also because when the British were engaging with Indian civilization, they really didn't know how to engage with Hinduism at all. So they just followed what the Brahmins told them was Hinduism.
Yeah, and actually,
which is very oppressive, and also not it's not the way of life of millions of people.
Yeah, I mean,
so it's partially due to our own inability to engage with the multifaceted nature of societies within societies in the Indian subcontinent. I feel very fancy and scholarly when I'm wearing my scarf like this. I'm not even gonna lie.
Let me speak for a second. Okay, Jesus Christ. I'm trying to get a word in. You're talking about your scarf when I'm trying to speak? All right. So a lot of people say that it was the British that created Hinduism because they couldn't understand what the hell they were looking at. They were like, okay, so the British came, okay, and they were like, so before the British, Hindu and Hinduism was more of a geographical term rather than a religious identity. They were like, you people who you live, the foreigners, like the Greek and the Persians, were like, I guess you people who live around here, like around the Sindus or Indus River, or you guys, Indus River, Hindi, India, I guess, right? So, sure, like it was a geographical term, not a religious term, right? But I guess it was mostly, I mean, technically other people before them, but the British, they came here like, okay, we're going to control this area. Let's have some law and order. We're the civilized people. Nobody else is. We introduce law and order wherever we go, so we could organize things because that's what we do. We organize things, right? And they went to the Muslims. I mean, like, okay, so you guys are the Muslims. You guys seem to have your own set of laws and rules. So give it to us so we could like establish some rules for you guys. Thank you very much. And the Muslims are like, yeah, we our religion, we have a organized, well-defined religion that comes with a Sharia. Like, here it is. And the British were like, okay, you could use some of this. Seems a bit too barbaric, but the rest of it, you could use it as an enforcement method. What about everybody else? Like, everybody else was not one thing, right? So they just decided to call everybody else just like, what is this other thing? Like, like, we have Muslims, everybody else, I guess, like, we're just gonna call you all Hindu, like, you're just Hindu, everybody Hindu, okay? And the Brahmins were like, so people think like the British forced this upon them, but the Brahmins were very happy about this. They were like, yes, like, give us some, like, put us in charge, like, make us a leader of this whole thing. Like, you're putting everybody under us, right? And they're like, well, these people have Sharia. What do you guys have? And they were like, oh, wait, let's take a look. And they went through all the scripture and like, oh, there we go.
Laws of Manu.
We have we have the Dharma Sutra. They're like, these are law books. And the British are like, I guess this is your Sharia then. Like,
no, it was the law of Manu that was emphasized.
I think it was this one. Wait, is the Manu here? I think the law of Manu is within this. The law of Manus is, I think, it's a sub. Wait, do you see it anywhere else? I think it's a subcategory.
No, it's not on this chart. It's the books within books gets very confusing.
I think the Dharma Sutra is like all of the law books. I think somebody correct us if I'm wrong.
Oh, right? No, look.
But then went
the Dharma Shastra below. It says includes Manu Samhita.
Oh, includes Manu. Okay, Manu. Okay, so but I think the one above it is the main one. But yeah, maybe these two. Okay, they basically told them, like, the British, like, here, and then they created a unified identity. And then when the British left, they were like, we're not going to give up this unified identity. This is pretty good. Well, it's pretty useful. We like it. I mean, they needed it because the Muslims were there. Like, do you know what I mean?
It's also the people mostly pulled out in contrast to Muslim society, which actually
that's what I'm saying
disregards the diversity of casteism within Muslims too.
Yeah, I mean, well, one reason why you had to deny the diversity within the Muslims is because one reason why they denied the diversity within Hindu society was because if you did that, then you would have to, if you acknowledged it, then you would have to acknowledge the diversity within Muslims as well. And they didn't want to do that. So they ignored it. So the leaders, so when the partition was happening, the leaders of the Muslims and the leaders of the Hindus, right, they both didn't address casteism on the other side, because if they did, they would have to acknowledge casteism on their side. And if they did that, they wouldn't be able to lead their people. So they both betrayed their own people and didn't point to each other's lack of unity. So they're like, okay, you could lead all Muslims so that we could lead all of the Hindus. And they betrayed their own people. Both sides betrayed their own people like that, right?
I was watching a really interesting video about how it was upper caste Muslims that pushed for partition, where there was actually a large movement of lower caste Muslims who vehemently objected to this because they realized that they had more in common with the people from their own community than Muslims on the other side of the country, right? And so I want to study the I can't remember the name of, I think it was called the Movement Council or something. I want to study their works as well.
Before the partition, a lower caste from the Hindu side would have more in common with a lower caste from the Islamic side. And yes, the caste system was a thing in the Muslim community in India, right? And in the greater India before, okay? That was a thing. But a lower caste person from a Hindu side and a Muslim side had more in common than, than a lower caste Hindu with other Hindus or a lower caste Muslim with other Muslims, right? But they ignored this class diversity because they wanted to separate people based on this Muslim-Hindu divide. Anyways, we've gone on for too long. So, but anyways,
the Muslim-Hindu contrast in India is just an illusion meant to prop up caste society. It's a distraction.
Yes, exactly. This is what religion does. Religion divides people.
We accidentally got into some juiciness. Yes, thank you. Mega Moon is reminding me, the All Indian Women League. Thank you.
Yes, Muslim League. Led by,
no. The lower caste Muslims, their name for their group was the All India Women League.
The ones that completely went ignored, as if they were non-existent. Yes, yeah.
Because on censuses, Muslims were encouraged not to list their caste.
Exactly. Okay. All right. Anyways,
Katie's saying, no, I'm late. Katie, you got to go through the last 20 minutes. It got juicy. Damn.
Yeah, it got juicy. All right, guys. Talk to you guys later. Thank you very much. We're going to get more into these kind of discussions. We're going to learn more. Some people are saying we're wrong about things. Obviously, this is such a hot topic. No matter what position we're going to have, and many people are going to say we're right, but a lot of people are going to be telling us we're wrong. There's no right answer to these things. I mean, there is a right answer to these things, but it's going to get very, very confrontational.
We got to get deep into it.
We're going to get deep into it. Yeah. Anyways, talk to you guys later. Thank you so much. Make sure you like before you leave. I do not permit any of you to leave before liking this video. And I have been told recently that you don't need to actually smash the like button. I've been told that a gentle tap is good enough. Okay, so some good news for people who have been not liking our videos because they've thought that they have to smash it. I'm telling you, just tap it. It doesn't cost you anything. It's a half a second, and it helps our channel grow. Just lightly tap it. Okay. All right.
Wait, no, Armin, this is a comment that you would like. Vishwa Kumar is saying, wow, you guys are more knowledgeable about India than many Indians. I thought you would like to hear
that. Thank you. And some Nipton is saying, love to Armin and Susanna, and also more importantly than love is the liking the video. I'm kidding. Already liked the video. Thank you. Did that before. And thank you so much, guys. Support us, please, and like the video. It really does help us grow. Anyways, bye.
Bye.